The title of my speech tonight is Layers of Strength. And a lot of times we get discouraged. But in reality, there are layers of strength, and Robert Welch addressed them when he was alive, demonstrating that there are layers of strength that we can build on. That not all is lost in this country by a country mile. And in 2008, we saw what many of those layers were. For instance, the election cycle produced more potential to build lasting organization than at any time since the Goldwater campaign in 1964. A lot of people came out. A lot of people got involved. And it demonstrated particularly the youth of that concern. It was more a new guard than it was the old guard. And it was gratifying to see this happen all over the country. Now, of course, it was co-opted in many, many areas, but it was there. 2008 became a banner year for constitutionalist use of the Internet, didn't it? Tremendous use of the Internet, and showed that a few people could take a movement and a cause and a belief and really get it out there and start organizing it using that particular medium. 2008 produced more positive results in state legislatures than at any previous time in the history of this country. 2000 again once demonstrated that private and home schooling continues to grow substantially every year. 2008 was the year that Robert Pastor admitted that the North American Union was in trouble. So let's go back over some of these layers of strength. There are many others, and many things in the American culture, in spite of the negative that we see reported in the media, that are out there that we can grow on, that are those sparks, if you will, in the American people. The election cycle of 2008 gave us new people. A tremendous amount of people came out through the Internet and such things as that. But the one thing that they didn't have was experience. Now, this is very important. I don't know of a movement in my lifetime when I've been involved that has not been co-opted by the other side. I can't think of one. You in this room create a layer of understanding which starts to build a wave as it ripples out to where the people want to become involved. And just about the time that wave begins to crest, somebody with a surfboard runs out in front of it and grabs that wave and rides it on into the shore, whether it's a Richard Nixon or whomever. I won't mention other names because to do so, I suppose I'd destroy some of your heroes. But I do believe that there are many people in the Christian right and things like that that deliberately captured the movement and misdirected it. One name I think you won't be offended if I mention, and that's Newt Gingrich. And what do we see happening again? He's running out in front of the wave to capture it and ride it into the presidency if he can get away with it. Well, we aren't going to let him get away with it. Let's put it that way right now. The bad part, the negative part of the new people is that they lack experience. Now, who has experience in this movement? We do. And so that means as you really, are going to have to become involved with these new people and help them understand a number of things, particularly who are the friendly people and who the enemies are. I can't tell you how many times I talked to people across the country who went into a convention or a meeting or something like that, and they had a lock on it. They had an overwhelming majority and walked out scratching their head wondering why they lost. It was their own leaders that had sold them out. And why? Because they didn't know, they didn't have enough experience to understand who these false leaders were. They will come and stand next to you and whisper in your ear sweet nothings and convince you that they're on your side. They will tell you what you want to hear and then take the leadership and scuttle the movement. And that's what we see happening today, right now in certain areas, and I've already thrown out the one name of Newt Gingrich, but it's right down to the state levels where this has happened. And those of us who've been involved in these things over the years know who the players are. So we have to get next to these people and help guide them and turn that lack of experience into knowledgeable understanding of who the friends are and so on. We see that, for instance, the use of rallies. Now, I don't want to do this in the way of criticism, but let me tell you this, and it's something that most people on our side, outside of the John Birch Society, do not understand. And that is that rallies really don't amount to much of anything in the way of affecting change. And there's a lot of downside to them. There's a lot of things that the other side can use. The only time rallies work, or demonstrations work, or picket lines work, or whatever, is to provide show business for the media to hype up, to give the excuse for the insiders to do something they wanted to do to begin with. You know, they can take a little tiny segment of society, say 50 people, out in a picket line in front of the White House and blow it up into a big thing. I remember one wag in the John Birch Society years ago. He used to express it this way. He'd say, you know, 50 people out in a picket line really that's not very many people, but if you multiply it by 50 million TV sets, it's a big deal. And that's the way they play these things. The media, if they don't like what you're doing, they either ignore you, or what else do? They come in and make you look ridiculous. Is that not true? They'll pick out the most ridiculous-looking person, probably on the other side, who came dressed as Uncle Sam or something, with a sign that nobody understands. It's about as extreme as it gets, and that's what's emblazoned on all the TV sets across the country. And so a lot of our people on our side think that it was those rallies that the left was doing that changed things. It wasn't. It was show business to be used by the left, to be used by the insiders, to give the excuse for everybody in the country to think, oh, well, everybody's for this, I guess I'll go along with it when the insiders make a change or put a stop to something, in the case of trying to affect gun control and things of that nature. So please understand what rallies are useful for, and understand that, yes, there are a lot of good people that go out to them, and yes, we should be there and to get in there and help them understand how to be more effective. And being more effective is not standing out on a curb. It's getting into our opinion molders, one-on-one, visiting our state representatives in their office and our congressmen and our city councilmen and the leaders of our community, that sort of thing. It's work. It's work. And thank God the members of the John Birch Society have performed that work over the years. And they understand that's where change happens. That's where we get the job done. It's not out with a sign and that sort of thing, and standing on a bridge holding up a flag or whatever it is. And therefore, a lot of people on our side who are our allies and our friends do not understand the work of the John Birch Society, because why? They don't see it. You see, we do it quietly behind the scenes. A recent example of that is this recent flap over the con-con. How many of you saw that, where, boy, it's just 2 votes away, and you know, if we're not careful, we're going to have a constitutional convention. Well, they didn't even know that our members had been going out to the legislatures rescinding those calls. That's old news, you see, but what happened? We were doing it quietly behind the scenes. We weren't waving the flag and saying, look, the John Birch Society is doing this, please notice us, and stick out our chests. We were just quietly, altruistically going about our business and getting the job done. Our closest allies can't even see it. Well, the best examples is a man that's probably sitting up behind me here. Where Bliss 2, where are you? Oh, there he is over there. Well, Bliss 2 was in the legislature in his state, and there was I think it was an anti-NAU resolution, wasn't it? Yes, against the North American Union in his state. And he and a couple of other members were there kind of monitoring the progress. And another organization that was there, filling the halls, with its members came up and admonished Bliss and said, look, why don't you have all your Birchers here? We know you've got hundreds of Birchers here in this area. Why aren't you flooding the halls? And basically what Bliss said was, well, we've already done our work. We're just here to monitor the progress in case something goes wrong. You see, between the sessions, we went into the living rooms and into their offices and showed them videos and got them to read materials. This is our resolution that they're passing here today. We're just here to make sure that nothing goes wrong. See, by that time, it was too late to fill the halls. You see, if you don't help write the script, you don't get a role in that script. And it's that quiet work that we do between sessions and so forth that gets the job done, if we do it. So our allies don't see it. You see, our friends don't see it. They think that they can go down to hearings, they can go and persuade people when the vote's up. Believe me, hearings are show business too. They're done by the powers that be that run those hearings to do what they've already decided to do. See, do they invite you to come in and talk at those hearings? No, they invite the people that they want to hear from in those hearings. And so by the time the hearings are done, or even called for, it's a done deal. You've got to get them before that, and that's the kind of work that we do. So we have to offer that kind of understanding and that kind of leadership to these new people to get them to understand what it's all about, how to be more effective. The thing is that 2008 became a banner year for constitutionalist use of the internet, and that's really quite good. But there's a missing ingredient in the internet use, and that's building personal relationships. Nothing in this world beats building personal relationships. Yes, we can use the internet, and yes, the John Birch Society is using the internet very well. But we still have to build personal relationships with those we work with and those that we want to influence. Let me ask you a question. Who do you listen to most? Those closest to you or a perfect stranger? Well, there's your answer. We have to make ourselves friends of the people that we want to try and influence, don't we? Now, how do we do that? Well, if you call them up and you get a message, it doesn't work, does it? If you send them an email, if you even know what their email address is, does that work? No, you've got to get in and meet them and get them to the point where they trust you for the advice that you give them and the information that you give them, that what you have in the way of that information is sound and accurate, reliable. Pretty soon they start coming to you. It happens. And that's the way you get things done, not simply by using the internet. Using the internet only means you're talking to people and you're not reaching out that agree with you. It's insular, like anything else. Now, you may find more people that agree with you, but that's not the point, is it? The point is you've got to find people that don't agree with you and change their minds, don't you? And that's how we get things done, particularly opinion molders and that sort of thing. And so that's the sort of business that we need to do by using social networking to be able to organize, but then changing that organization into building personal relationships with your local officials, etc. This is the first time since 1968 that we've been able to double our membership. Or 65, rather. We have right now 170 plus groups online, for instance. Not all of them are Birchers. We have about 100,000 people that come to our website every month that are unique. Now, in the past, everybody has said, okay, look, we have so many page views. Well, page views really don't count. There's a reason for that. For instance, Google and some of those search engines actually go into websites constantly, sometimes every few minutes, but certainly every hour of the day, 24/7, to monitor your site, to search for those things to make sure that they're still there to provide whatever it is they need for their search capabilities. So page views will be counted by those. The page view stats will count those as page views, not saying where it comes from. So it distorts your figures terribly. Well, I didn't understand that until about 6 months ago. And everybody is touting their page views. They're in the millions. Well, ours were in the millions too. But what really counts is how many individual, unique people are coming to your website and using it. Well, it's about 100,000 a month now. Now, what do I mean by unique? What I mean is in a time span that you're measuring, in this case every month, if someone comes onto our website, they're counted. If they come back to the website in 5 minutes, 5 days, or 2 weeks, they're not counted again. You see, they're never counted again in that 30-day period of time. So that's what I mean by unique visits. That's our first plateau. We've met our first goal. Our next goal is 250,000. And we've got plans in play that we're starting right now and continuing on to get us up to 250,000 every month. When we get to that level, then we're starting to play with the big boys. And by that I mean where we have a substantial enough traffic to where major corporations will come to us and advertise on our website. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. Keep in mind, when we use these statistics, we are not simply an educational organization. A lot of people say, what are you? Well, we're an educational organization. That's not true. Education is a methodology. It is not what we are. We're an action organization. That's what we are. We just use education as a strategy. And so when you come to our website, it's not just to learn something, it's to try and involve you in something. And that's a big difference. If all I'm going to do is go to a site and get my daily bad news or whatever it is, I don't have to do anything, then a lot of people will do that. But people who come to our site are looking for answers and solutions and trying to find ways of getting involved. So when you start throwing those numbers out relative to 100,000, that's an awful lot of people across the country that are interested in doing that. Getting to the point where the state legislatures, we've had more positive results there. The resolutions against the North American Union, the resolutions against the Federal Reserve, the beginning of the 10th Amendment movement. Yet these are resolutions, are they not? And so that in itself is nice, but they've got to become a little bit more than resolutions. They've got to have teeth in them. They've got to have resolve in them. I mean, sending a resolution to Congress, so what? It'll go in the archives and so on and so forth. And it makes us all feel good, and it's great, don't get me wrong. It's a wonderful thing. It's a process, but it is only the first step in the process. We've got to get the state legislatures to stand up and get backbone. Now, there's only one way we can do that, and that is to have enough members of the society in those states in order to instill the backbone into that legislature. And that's why this single district program that we're instituting is so important. Right down the spine of the United States, by and large, you see the 1, 2, 3, 4 district states. The North and South Dakota, the Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Utah, New Mexico, etc. All those pretty much have 1 to 4 congressional districts. If we can fill those and others with staff and accelerate our growth in those areas using radio and internet, we will start to see those legislatures getting backbone. We will send those representatives to Congress who are constitutionalists and 2 U.S. senators from each one of those states. If we get 42 people into those states, we will have 42 United States senators. That's the way it works out. That's veto. That is treaty proof. That is filibuster proof. And the nice thing about it is that's the body that appoints U.S. federal judges, doesn't it? See how important it is? We've always said Congress is the key, but for some reason or another, over the last 20 years, we kind of got derailed a little bit on this thing, and we think we're only talking about the House. But Robert Welch always said Congress. That's 2 houses, not 1. And so this idea that we're only talking about the House of Representatives simply because money bills start there is a bad thing to think about. If we can take the same dollar and get 2 U.S. senators, Well, we get one congressman in Wyoming, North and South Dakota, etc. Why not? You see, and so that's what we're proposing to do. Ladies and gentlemen, no other organization in this country has a plan to win back Congress. And frankly, I don't know of a better plan. We've racked our brain over it. And we're going to seek the funding to be able to do this. It's not going to be easy. It's a tough road. But ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing that stands in the way of victory tonight except sufficient funding. Nothing. 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 If there is enough money to do the job, these people are going to run back under their rock. It's just that plain simple. But it is elusive. At a time in history when we can build bigger, better than ever before, and the cause of that, being able to do that, the economic situation that's driving people out into the public saying, I've had enough, is also stifling our ability to raise sufficient funds to take advantage of it. It's very ironic. But at any rate, we're planning on doing it, and we resolved at the council meetings this weekend that we are going to do this no matter what we have to do to get the job done. Recruiting amongst legislators into the John Birch Society, I don't think has ever been as high as it is today. We have a lot of state representatives across this country who are members of the John Birch Society as a direct result of our stopping the North American Union campaign. And working at the state legislative level is so important because statistically 65% of the people in the legislatures go on to higher office. And they're very amenable at that level. When they start moving up, they get they get more difficult to deal with. At any rate, the thing again about 2008, and I don't know if you saw that. I believe it's on the cover of USA Today. That homeschooling continues to grow. I think it grew 12% or something last year. At least that's what they think. There's a lot of homeschoolers that don't register their kids in any way, shape, or form. So how do they know how many people are in it? I know the county I came from, they have a situation there where it's okay if you homeschool as long as you register with the local government school. Well, half the people that are on that list, I know at least half again as many that never do report. They just say it's none of the school district's business, and they go about their private schooling at home. So we don't really know what the statistic is. However, as I mentioned in the talk this afternoon, we are going to be moving into producing curricula for homeschooling in private academies, et cetera, because I see a weakness in homeschooling. Now, why do I say that? It's a weakness because we're seeing some things that are not being taught exactly the way they should be taught relative to getting people to the level where they have the moral responsibility, the altruistic responsibility to go out there and get involved in their local community and occupy. Seems to me, I heard somebody one time says occupy till I come, right? What does occupy mean? It's a very serious word. It means you go in there and you literally become your community. You run the community. You are the local government, and on and on and on. That's what occupy means. And so that's what we have to do. But we do not see that sort of thing. What do we see? And Chuck was saying, that some of these pastors, we don't get involved in that. That's government. We don't get involved. Just, my four walls here, save souls, that's the world. We don't get involved in the world. Well, I'm sorry. That's why the world's going to hell. And when we see the Christian right movement acting like the lemmings, going over the cliff following these neocons, then something is missing in their education. And so what we want to do is to provide a classic liberal arts education establish a civic morality within that curriculum, and also the idea that we fight people, not ideas. Ideas are driven by people, they're thought up by people, they're organized by people, they're financed by people. The ideas go away if the people go away. It's very simple. And so we fight people, we don't fight ideas. We do not need think tanks. We need action. And so that's the thing that we've got to instill in these homeschoolers. Robert Pastor admitted that the North American Union was in trouble in 2008. So now they're going to fall back on Richard Gardner's admonition that we're going to have a booming, buzzing confusion. And that's what they're producing now. They're not giving us a target anymore. We had this security and prosperity partnership that we could openly battle. But now they're making it a little bit more of a booming, buzzing confusion, so we don't have a clear target. That's going to make our job a little bit more difficult, but we've already laid the groundwork so that battle won't be half of the difficult it would have been had they started that procedure in the onset instead of doing the SPP. With the right tools, we can stop them. With enough people, we can stop them. And we're doing it more and more. People are beginning to listen more and more to what's going on. Now, in many ways, I sound critical about some of the situations and the way they're being handled by folks out there. But we, as members of the John Birch Society, have to know the right way to go about making things happen and getting things done and being change agents and really thinking about that and saying to ourselves, how can we reach out way beyond our membership and get to more people in a way that's acceptable? And that's through personal relationships. It's time consuming. It's not easy. You can team up and do it with your representatives and your local officials and everything else. But that's what we have to do. Robert Welch always said it was the opinion molders that we have to go out and influence. Now, Joe Sixpack's a great guy. But Joe Sixpack is not going to win this country back. It's going to be the people who run the local bank, who run the local car dealership, who run the local Kiwanis Club, in the Junior Chamber of Commerce and in the Senior Chamber of Commerce, and so on and so forth. Those are the people that we have to get close to and start talking to them, befriend them, and move them along a step at a time. And that's how we are designing our tools these days. We get a little criticism sometime because we're not really hard-hitting and that sort of thing. We're not in the business of producing videos for members of the John Birch Society. We're in the business of producing videos for members of the John Birch Society to use on people that don't know anything. We've been doing a lot of good relative to attracting new people to us. Are they Birchers? No, not yet. Some of them have joined and they're still not Birchers. How many here didn't learn anything after you joined the John Birch Society? Can I see a show of hands? Didn't learn anything after you joined the John Birch Society? I learned almost everything I know after I joined the John Birch Society. And if somebody had come to me and hit me on the side of the head and said, "Hey, dummy," I probably would have found somebody else to talk to. And so we have to be kind and friendly and forgiving and patient and do everything we can to win this country back by going and talking to our opinion molders. And we will do it. We're doing it now. There are states where Oklahoma's a shining example, Utah's a good example, Idaho is a good example, and on across this country. We're starting to see the layers of strength come together and affect real change in those areas. I don't know of maybe one exception of all the states that entered and passed resolutions against the North American Union where it wasn't our members that did it. Now, we didn't stand up and shout and everything else, and a lot of people took credit for what happened. But it was you who made it happen. Whether it's California or the states where it actually got done. But the thing is that's how we're going to do it. We're going to win it back a state at a time. And we need your help to do that. We need it financially. We did with your time and your energy and everything else. We are going to concentrate sometimes in areas that is not going to affect you immediately. We're going to say, hey, look, if we can get 2 senators out of North Dakota, I think I'd rather put the money there than put it into L.A. where we're not going to get a U.S. senator, okay? Does that make sense to you? Okay. Robert Welch tried it in Idaho. We did it in 2.5 years. We went from Cecil Andrus and Frank Church to Steve Sims and George Hansen in about 2.5 years because we went in there and got the job done with sufficient staff. Just that simple. Idaho has never looked back. It's been a conservative state ever since. It started out as a liberal state. Again, I just want to send you the message and leave you with this message, is that there are layers of strength that we can build on. They're sufficient. They're broad and they're deep. And they're just beginning to expose themselves. And if we can do the job that we know we can do, we're going to win this country back, and it's going to make everybody just dizzy with the success that we can achieve if we just get in there and make up our mind to do it. And so that's my message to you tonight, is please do everything you can. Don't give up hope, because the hope I see right now is that we can win this thing. I firmly believe we will win this thing. And it won't be very long from now. You know, when I first joined the society, I thought it was over. How many thought it was over when they joined the society? Yeah. And we're still here. We keep setting them back and setting them back and setting them back. What was the deadline for the formation of the Free Trade Area of the Americas? 2005. What happened? The members of the John Birch Society. What's the deadline for establishing the North American Union? 2010. Do you think it's going to happen? No. Why? Members of the John Birch Society. The next deadline is 2015 to merge with the EU. Do you think it's going to happen? No. Why? Members of the John Birch Society. So, what's the solution? More members of the John Birch Society.